First blue card is Air Cult Elemental Flying. When Air Cult Elemental enters the battlefield, return up to one other target creature is under his hand. This card seems pretty bad. 6 mana is a lot to pay for 7 stat points. Weirdly enough, you can't bounce your own creatures, but the passivism this turns into a treasure, not a creature. The Minimus Containment turns it into a treasure, so you can't bounce it to free it. With Air Cult Elemental anyway. Yeah, this seems pretty medium minus. I would hope that you would not play this card in your deck. I mean, it does kill the 4/4 Death Touch God from the Tomb of Annihilation. So maybe you board it in if your opponent's going for Tomb of the Annihilation. Maybe. This turn 6 is about the time it's going to be on if they're going to do it, turn it on. That seems pretty bad. It might actually just be a 3. Arcane Investigator, 6 mana, roll a d20. Okay, so this is actually the first die roll card we've come across. There were no die roll cards in white, and there weren't any dungeons that rolled dice. So 6 mana, draw a card. Okay. 6 mana. Okay, so 1 to 9, draw a card, and then 10 through 20. So it looks like that's 45% you just draw a card, and then 55% of the time you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your... Okay, so you anticipate instead of drawing a card. Okay. This is a common blue elf. Let's see. There was... in the past, there was a really ridiculous... Yeah, Azure Mage. So, like, Azure Mage was a bananas card, and I'm back in this limited format. And so obviously this card is much worse, but Azure Mage was also uncommon. This is a common. This looks like a card I wouldn't be unhappy to play, because turns 6 mana is about the time when you really need to start like doing something every turn for the rest of the game. And this lets you do that. Anticipates a lot better than drawing a card for sure. I like that it anticipates instead of just putting the other ones on in your graveyard or exiling or whatever. So you don't have to worry about the deck damage so much. This seems like pretty quality filler. Put it as probably a 5. Not a huge difference in the outputs. Like you just 6 mana up a card. Obviously the anticipating is better than drawing a card, but if you draw a spell off it, you're probably not going to be able to do it the next turn. That's sort of the thing. Like when you're just drawing cards, you're happy with drawing lands or spells, because if you have more lands, you can just do this ability more often. I don't mind it. Bar the Gate. Counter target creature or planeswalker spell, venture into the dungeon. These types of cards have always been good in sealed. A notable exception was Strixhaven, when like everything that cost 5 or more was actually an instant or sorcery. So these types of cards were not good in the previous format, but that was kind of an outlier. I think in this one that there's going to be lots of cards that cost... creature cards that cost 4, 5, or 6. Lots of dragons to counter. And venturing the dungeon's worth like a quarter of a card to half a card, depending on what's going on. Like, for instance, if you just go for the most basic dungeon, the Lost Mine, it's like 3 mana, counter your creature, make a 1/1, right? Counter your creature and scry 1. That's pretty good. You're probably gonna play most of the ones you open, but not too many. Like, I wouldn't play 3 of these, maybe. But you probably play the first 2. When Charmed Sleep enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Doesn't... Okay, so you're just your typical enchant creature. This is a reprint, right? I'm sure they printed these in Frost. Is that the name of the card? It was in the past. No, I don't remember what it was called. Frost something. Was it claustro? Oh, it was claustrophobia. Is that what it was? Yeah, I think you're right in claustro. Yeah, claustrophobia was good in its... Yeah, you're right. It was claustrophobia. Claustrophobia was good back in the day. So it's a good removal spell. I haven't seen a whole lot of creatures with passives, so I don't think you're actually gonna... I haven't seen very many anyways. I feel like in this set, a lot of creatures have like come into play abilities or like least play abilities, but when they're in play, they don't really do much. So this seems like a 7. You're probably gonna play all the ones you open. Clever Conjurer. Mage Hand. Untapped target permanent not named Clever Conjurer. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, so they don't want you to untap each other. Okay, sure. Anyways. You can untap lands, though. In the previous format, that's what Kelpie Guy did a lot of the time. Kelpie Guy was an uncommon, and it was a 2/2. This is a 2/3. 2/3 mana rock. If you want to cast a it says activate only as a sorcery, but you can float mana. Or you can like pay 3 mana, then untap your land, and then pass a turn and use 2 mana in your opponent's turn. That seems pretty good. If you have like 4 lands in this, you want to cast a 5-drop, you just tap your land, then use Mage Hand to untap your tapped land, and then you tap all 4 of your lands, you get 5 mana to cast your 5-drop. So this seems like a fine mana rock creature. It almost feels like a green card. It also technically gives your creature vigilance. I like that it's sorcery speed only, so it's not the onboard tricky. I actually like that aspect of the card. It might have been better if it was just untap only during your turn, but yeah, I like it. I think it's a good filler for a Riot Devils. It might be closer to a 6, but I don't think I'm gonna play 2 of these. If I may not even want to play the first one. It's not that bad. You're fine to play it. That's kind of what a 5 is. It's a filler card. You're fine to play it. Contact other plane. 4 mana, draw 2 cards. That's not good. 4 mana, scry 2, then draw 2 cards. That's really good. So that's going to happen. So 45% of the time, you're going to draw 2 cards. 50% of the time, you're going to draw 2, scry 2, then draw 2. And then if you roll a 20, scry 3, then draw 3. Wow, is that a huge difference in outputs between a 20 and a 1. So I guess on average, you're going to scry like 1.05 or something. Scry 1 point something and then draw 2. 2.1 or something. If you have like a reroll, that'd be even better. This card seems really good. Like Behold the Multiverse was a 4 mana like scry 2 draw 2, and that was like a bomb and sealed. Yeah, it's an instant too. It's also a die rolling card. I'm sure there are cards that trigger off die rolling that we haven't gotten to yet. I probably have my cutoff at 3. I probably would not play more than 3 of these in my deck, which means it's probably either an 8 or a 9. We'll put it as an 8 for now. I'm willing to believe it's actually a 9. I'll just call it a 9. It does depend on the cards you draw. Like if your deck doesn't have a lot of cheap removal spells, this card gets a lot worse. So I haven't really seen that many in blue, so I haven't seen that many in general. There's only like 1 removal spell I've seen, which is a 3-cost sorcery. This thing. So I'll call it an 8 for now, but I'm willing to believe it's actually a 9. What was Behold the Multiverse? So Behold the Multiverse was the Foretell. Was this one. Scry 2, draw 2. Behold the Multiverse is certainly better than this card. But Behold the Multiverse is like a 9 out of 10 in that format. Whereas Contact Other Plane is certainly worse than, it's like worse in almost every way. 4 cost, 3/3 flying. When it enters the battlefield, roll a d20. Scry 1 on 1 to 9. Scry 2 on 10 to 19. Scry 3 on 20. So it's 45% scry 1, 50% scry 2, and then 5% scry 3. And it's a phantom monster at common. Okay. If you don't know what a phantom monster is historically been a bananas card in every limited format it's ever been in. 4 cost 3/3. What's up with this? Why does blue get to just have 4 cost 3/3 flyers with upside? Like I remember Imperial Arrow. We were talking about Imperial Aerosaur, which was this one. This was like a bomb uncommon in Ixalan. 4 mana 3/3 flyer, and then they just blue gets to be it. They have a common. Goodness. Well, that's really good. I'll mark it as an 8, I guess. It's either... I can't put it as a 9. If a card doesn't pay rent, it's hard to justify it being a 9, but it's an 8. Yeah, Phantom Monster is above rate, like always, and limited, and this card is Phantom Monster Plus. That's pretty awesome. I'm not sure there's an amount of Windseekers I wouldn't play. Morden, Kindness, Polymorph. Until end of turn, target creature becomes a dragon with base power and toughness 4/4 and gains flying. This is essentially Mighty Leap, right? I mean, that's basically what this is. I mean, that's what, yeah. Basically what this is 2 mana, +2/+2 and flying. It might actually be worse than Mighty Leap a lot of the time. It's a card that I don't like Combat Tricks and Sealed. So there was a card in the previous set that was called Square Up, which I think, if I remember correctly on the stats, was the worst card in the set. Which was 2 mana, target creature at base power does 4/4. Now obviously this is better because it becomes a dragon and has flying. But giving something flying doesn't make it from the worst card in the set into a playable card. So I'm kinda off it. Yeah, right. There was Wings of Velas Vale was actually a better card than this, right? Yeah, you're right. Wings of Velas Vale is actually exactly what this card is. Yep. Yeah, Wings of Velas Vale was actually better because it was not only was it tribal, it made it every creature type, and it was actually relevant there, and the card was just unplayable. So, all right, Pixie Guide, grant an advantage. Oh wait, 2 mana, 1/3 flyer. Those are good stats, good baseline stats. If you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many dice +1 and ignore the lowest roll. Okay, that's really. It's gonna depend if you can roll, if you have roll dice effects. If you don't, then don't bother, right? This seems like a filler card to me. Seems like a filler if you have dice rolly fellows, like good ones, at least 4 or 5 dice rolling fellows, then play it if you don't. The thing is, it's like, the output on this isn't drastically different if I do it. So maybe there are cards with other rarities, or like the output on this one isn't like hugely different. So I think the ceiling on this Pixie Guide is certainly a 6. It's between 4 and 6. From what I've seen, the most die roll effects, even if you roll sub 10, it's like the effect is generally still worth doing. So I'm not sure, like, having a 2-cost 1/3 flyer as a cost to have, like, what is that, 50% chance of improving your die roll is really that what's worth it. Yeah, McQuinn Sauce. There's one in blue I'll get to later. Oh, no, I thought you were talking about higher. Yeah, so there's a card actually in blue that actually gets worse the higher number you put in. But so Joy, I guess it depends what your definition of increase of 25%. Going from 50 to 75% or 55 to 80%, that's almost a 50% bonus, not a 25% in bonus. So maybe I think maybe our words are, maybe we're talking about the same thing but different terms. But yeah, so if you go from 20 to 10%, for instance, you don't lose 10%, you lose 50%, right? It's the same thing here. If you go from like 55 to 80 or 50 to 75, it's 75, it's not a 25% bonus, it's a 50% bonus. That's why I was saying that. But I'm sure someone who's better at math can say like what the actual numbers are on that. Rhyme Shield, Frost Giants. Ward 3, 5 mana, 4/5. I mean, why would anybody even want to kill it? Why even have Ward if nobody wants to kill you? That seems fine. I mean, there was in the previous format, there was a card called Giant's Amulet. That was pretty bananas. Oh, Gain's Amulet. That's right, Gain's, not Giants. Yeah, I mean, Giant's Amulet was essentially pretty close to this, and it was really powerful uncommon. I mean, hexproof is a lot different than Ward 3. And moving it around does matter, but... Dowser of Lights, yeah. I mean, Dowser was a bomb in its format. Yeah, Dowser... This fellow was actually a bomb in that format. 5-mana 4/5. Nothing beat it. Yeah, it's a reasonable common, especially for blue to have. The double pip is kind of worrying. I mean, it's either I think you're probably not happy to play more than one if you have it. So I think I'll put it as a 5. It's a filler card. It's probably going to be worse than every other 5. Scion of Stygia, 3 cost 2/1 flash. When it enters a battlefield, choose target creature an opponent controls, then roll a d20. 1-9, tap that creature. 10-20, tap that creature. Okay, so 45% chance of just tapping it, and then 55% chance of icing it. I mean, in the previous format, there was the 3 cost 2/2 flyer, and I hated it. The Frost Trickster, and the thing had flying. This thing just doesn't even have flying. I don't really want anything to do with it. Now, though, the effect is a lot more powerful than the Trickster, because if you tap it on your opponent's turn, it's like tapped for 2 turns. Whereas Frost Trickster, you couldn't get more than 1 tap out of it. Still, I don't particularly like these types of effects. I never have. I'd rather have a Rhyme Field Frost Giant almost every time than this card. So, this is probably a 4. No, it's stronger than Frostlinks. If that's what you're looking at. Frostlinks is a much beloved card that I think is unplayable in almost every format. It's stronger than this card. The effect is more powerful. The 1-ton just doesn't matter. It's stronger than Frostlinks for sure. Because, like, tapping our creature on my turn and having it not on tap is the same as me waiting to go to your turn and then tap it. In fact, it's actually better because you might, like, play an equipment. Like, you might play an equipment. Say you might have 2 creatures in play. And if it was Frostlinks, I'd have the Frostlinks and tap one of them. And then you can, like, play an equipment and equip it on the creature that's not tapped and attack me. Whereas if you have 2 creatures and I have a Scion of Stygia, you play an equipment, you attach it, and then I can tap your creature afterwards, after you've equipped it, and then you don't get to attack with it, right? So it's a massively, massively stronger card than Frostlinks. And we're not even counting the fact, I'm not even considering if I get a 10 through 20. If I get a 10 through 20, the creature's also tapped the next turn. Like, it's actually just like an order of magnitude. It's like twice as good as Frostlinks. It really is. But the issue is, as we talked about previously in the format, is that there are 1/1 tokens from both the Lost Mine and the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, making 2 skeleton tokens. So X1s are typically gonna not trade with the full card from your opponent. Unless you have some sort of equipment to buff their toughness. So, just in the fact that it's probably twice as good as Frostlinks, I'm actually going to put this as a 5. Because it being twice as good as Frostlinks is actually a pretty massive thing. And people loved Frostlinks, despite it being pretty poor. This card actually might be way better than I think it is. But I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt and make me get a 5 instead of a 4. Alright, Secret Door, 1 cost 04 artifact creature, wall defender. 5 mana, venture into the dungeon, activate only as a sorcery. I don't know what to think about this. I think this card is better than the Ranger's Hawk by quite a lot. And there's a lot of 3/1s for 2. This card may be better than I think it is. For a steel wall, like a steel wall that can draw a card. Draw a quarter of a card, draw half a card, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty good. Yeah, it doesn't tap to venture, so you can still block with it. Like, it's going to actually take effort for your opponent to get past an 0/4, right? I like this card, I think. It gives you a mana sink. Like, I actually wonder if Secret Door is better than Arcane Investigator. It actually might be. Yeah, it actually might be better than Arcane Investigator, because if you activate Secret Door 3 times, there's a good chance that you can get 3 cards out of it somehow. Like, if you just choose the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, right? Like, you can get into the Mad Wizard's Lair and get 3 cards off that. I think I like this card. If your deck isn't trying to attack to win, if you think you have like lots of good removal spells, this card is quite good. I think if your deck is obviously if you're playing like a blue-red aggro deck, you don't play this card, right? This is more of you're playing like a 3-color deck that has lots of cheap removal spells. This card gets a lot better. I'll put it as a 5 for now. But I'm willing to believe this card's actually way better than I think it is. That I might just be playing. Maybe it's a 6. The thing is like I'm hesitant to call it a 6 because I don't think you're gonna want to main deck it in every deck. I think you're like you have to be playing a deck that wants to go late. And it's possible that I don't want you to be misguided by seeing a 6 on this secret door, thinking that you should just always be playing it to like a main deck card. It's really not. I think it's either a 1 or a 6, right? And so I'm gonna err on the side of caution and call it a 5. But you have to be wanting this to actually want to play it. Shocking Grasp. 2 cost, instant. Target creature goes -2 until the turn. This card's great. Holy moly. There was a card called Befuddle that was just Annihilate. Secretly Annihilate. So Befuddle in the past was 3 cost -4 draw a card. And one of my favorite cards in the format. I always played it. So you just always got a card out of it. A card and a half because you killed your opponent's creature and you saved yours in combat and you drew cards. Just and there's a lot of fight cards in the format too. Yeah, this card's pretty great. I think you're gonna play every one of them you open. I mean, I guess you're not gonna play 4 of them. If your deck is aggro enough, I could see playing 4 of them. This seems like it's exceptionally good in a blue-black deck. If you have like a Death Toucher, a 4-mana Befuddle. Yeah, there's like a 4-mana -7/0 draw card in the past, I think too. I mean, this is also somewhat a revitalized, right? I mean, even if your opponent's like attacking you for 2, there's you can just like screw them up, right? And I think there's also a mechanic in the format called Pack Tactics that Shocking Grasp can also just destroy. So I think you can respond to Pack Tactics' like there's a mechanic in the format that says when this creature attacks, if you attack with 6 or more power creatures, have an output. And I think if you Shocking Grasp in response to the trigger, they don't even get because it checks on resolution. I don't think they get it. But I'm willing to be wrong. You have to look at the release notes for that. But I do think Pack Tactics' abilities will check. You think you have to do it before attacks? You might have to do it before attacks. Regardless, you can probably still Shocking Grasp your creature and block and kill it anyways. But definitely look up in the release notes to see if you can mess over this Pack Tactics before you take my word for it. As of when I'm doing this recording, as far as I know, the release notes are not out yet. So let's call Shocking Grasp at least a 6. I'm willing to believe it's actually a 7, but I'll call it a 6 for now. I think you should probably play the ones you open. Shortcut Seeker. Deals combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon, 4 cost 2/5. Wishcoin Crab has come a long way. Wishcoin Crab was a bomb, a semi-bomb in the format it was in. It was like one of the best sealed cards just because it blocked everything. Wishcoin Crab. 4 cost 2/5. 4 cost 2/5, no text. This has text, but this has text, but I'm not so sure that the text is going to come up very often. Although it is kind of interesting that your opponent may have to play a little bit differently. Like they may have to leave a blocker back or blow a removal spell on this because they don't want you to hit slap back, right? Slap back for venture. So I do like that this card is a threat. Whereas Wishcoin Crab, if you attack Wishcoin Crab, okay, I'm at 18, right? They go from 20 to 18. But Shortcut Seeker, if you attack with it and they're at 20, we're like, well, damn, this sucks. I would really rather that not happen. Yeah, this card actually seems good. It seems like it blocks everything and is dangerous on the counter swings if your opponent wants to try to get around it, going wide around it. This card seems pretty dangerous. Yeah, I think you're probably going to play it. 5 toughness is a lot. It seems like it blocks everything at 5 toughness. Anything that's not equipped. This card seems pretty good. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1. 1 cost 1 flying artifact creature. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with this card. They've done this before, and it's always been bad. This is just don't bother. Maybe it's a 3. Maybe there's some equipment that make it good. Maybe if you have no trusty machetes, it's good enough. Doubt it. Alright. When Soul Knife Spy deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. What's up? What? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, it's a strictly better Stealer's Secrets? What? I guess being an elf instead of a human makes you that much better. Okay, well. Then this also trades, right? It's going to trade with everything if they have a blocker, so even the downside of having a 2/2. This card seems phenomenal. This card seems really, really good. Well, elves aren't actually not strictly better than humans, because we look at Arcane Investigator, which is an elf wizard. And we saw earlier that there was Azure Mage, which is a human, which is way better, right? Azure Mage is way better than Arcane Investigator. Azure Mage is a human wizard, and Arcane Investigator is an elf wizard. But then we get here, and it's way better than Stealer of Secrets. So it's a coin flip whether being an elf is better than being a human so far. Elves are better rogues, but not wizards. There you go. You figured it out. Yeah, Soul Knife Spy seems great. I think you're going to play every one of them you open, and it's probably game over if your opponent ever hits you with this. Because if your opponent hits you with this, they're going to draw a card, which probably is a step closer to a removal spell that makes it so you're not going to be able to buy her the next turn either. This is such a dangerous card to exist. I can't believe it's a common. This feels like an uncommon. Like, if this was just an uncommon, I wouldn't even second guess it. Yikes. Alright, fight the current. Return target non-land permanent. Okay, so it's... Wow, this is actually... This is a strict... This is... surprising. Oh, okay, it's not better than Stern Dismissal. I thought it was... Yeah, I thought it cost 1. Okay. I was about to say, I thought it cost 1. It's just Disperse Plus, okay. Yeah, so I thought it was a strictly better, like, Stern Dismissal. But it's not. Stern Dismissal was good. Yeah, it's just a strictly better Disperse. And they printed those before. Into the Royal is an example of one. So this is Disperse, Return or not. So it's strictly better than this. And this Disperse is a card you almost always played in Sealed. And it also is also a combat trick that also can burn your opponent up. You can just like put it on a 4/4 and then take 5, right? It's like Lava Axe slash on summon. It's pretty unlikely like you attack with like a 2/3 and they belong with a 2/3 and then you give your creature +1/0 and then you kill their 2/3. That's unlikely to happen. So using it as a combat trick is whatever. But what is more likely to happen is that your opponent's at 8 and you have like a 2/2 flyer and you have like a 4 or 5 power ground pounder and you just kill them because you don't have a flying blocker. This is probably either a 6 or a 5. Fight the current, the return target non-land permanent. You most often use it on your own creatures in response to removal spells. But yeah, you come to a river is really good with Soul Knife Spy because you can just like, oh, they played a 4-mana 2/5. Well, you can just bounce it to their hand, draw a card, right? You get tempo advantage, you draw a card, you deal damage to them, you just get further ahead. I have a feeling this effect's gonna be great. There's a lot of dragons in the format that are cost like 5, 6, or 7 mana, right? So you're gonna get there's a ton of ways to get tempo advantage with this card. Tempo advantage means basically you try to answer an opponent's card with something that costs less than the card that they're playing. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed by this. I like it. You find the villain's lair. Choose one. Cancel. Or learn their secrets. Draw 2, discard 2. Well, you're pretty unlikely to be using learn their secrets, like, ever. Because that's card disadvantage, right? Because you're spending 3 cards to draw 2. Like, if you start off with 3 cards in your hand when you cast this card, you will end with 2 cards in your hand. Right? But there is the cancel part. When cancels a card that's typically played a lot and sealed. But the thing is, I actually think this card's pretty significantly worse than Bar the Gate. Because this is like counter target spell plus draw like a quarter or half a card. This is just counter spell. I mean, this is obviously useful in the sense that it counters instants and sorceries. But I haven't really seen that many instants and sorceries that are even worth countering. So, and equipment costs like, the equipment costs like 2 in the format, so it's unlikely you'll be able to do that either. Yeah, I think the Learn Their Secrets is kind of just flavor text. I think you'll probably play the first copy of this in your deck and you'll be happy about it, but I don't think you're going to want to play more than one or 2 copies of this card. Yeah, I mean, if you're losing, you can use Learn Their Secrets to maybe, like, try to draw out of it. So it's cool that it has, like, a backdoory way to get out of it. Not a good one, though, no. You see a guard approach. Choose 1. Tap target creature. Yuck. Hide. Target creature you control gains hexproof until... The Ranger's Guile of the set. The 1-cost hexproof card in the set. Ranger's Guile was +1/+1 and hexproof, and I thought that card sucked, and my opponents always played it. And I think Ranger's Guile was significantly better than this. And yeah, I think this card's quite bad. I think you can sideboard it in situations if your opponent has a lot of terminates, then this card is quite good. Like, and terminates that are expensive, like 4 or 5 cost terminates, then this card is quite good. But I think you're mostly going to be dealing with creature combat in this format instead of spells. So I think you should probably aim towards sideboarding this if you're going to be playing it at all. Yeah, there's a 4 at black does have a black has a destroy target creature, create a treasure for 4 mana at common. So there is something to counter that costs a lot. Now we're on to uncommons. Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. 5 cost 3/4. Enters the battlefield. Choose target instant sorcerer card in your graveyard, then roll a d20. 1 to 9, you may put the card on top of your library. 10 to 20, return the card to your hand. Yikes. Now, this is the type of effect that on dice rolling that I don't like to see. Where it's 45% chance of an effect that you don't want, and a 55% chance of an effect that you do want. The other ones they've done are not nearly as bad as, like, Diversion is. Like, this is 6 mana, draw a card, you get it no matter what, right? Or it's like, hey, you're gonna scry 1, you're just scrying by how much? Scrying is fine, it's whatever. This one is still pretty bad if you don't get 10 to 20, but it's at least something. You're opting into it. You're opting into this. The problem with the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer is the effect on 1 through 9 is actively bad. You may put that card on top of your library. That's a good point. That does make the card a bit better. If putting it on top is not what you want to do after you roll the die, then you just don't do it. Ugh. Because typically... Oops, not Ranger's Skyling anymore. Typically, these types of cards are like 5-mana 2/2s, or 5-mana 2/3s, right? Or 5-mana 3/2s. That return instants and sorceries. A 5-mana 3/4 is pretty massively overstated. Yeah, this is the type of card where... Yeah, or Archaeomancer was a 4-mana 1/2. And it was good as a 4-mana 1/2. 2 blue for Archaeomancer, yeah. So, this type of design makes me unhappy. Not happy at all. That being said, you are probably going to always play this card. And you're just going to have to deal with the fact that 55% of the time it's going to be like a 9 out of 10, and then 45% of the time it's going to be like a 5 out of 10. Man, that's just... I guess that's what it is. That's what it is. This card is probably a lot more defensible if you have the not the clever conjurer, what is it? The Pixie Guide. This is a reason to play Pixie Guide. I don't know the exact math on what it takes, but the odds of you getting 10 or greater on 2 d20s is probably pretty good if you have the Pixie Guide in play, right? Better than 75%. Was it like 80%? It averages a +5. Okay. Yeah, it's about 80%. Yeah, just under 80. Is that then if this Fey Pixie Guide helps you get the card to your hand, it's essentially drawing a card, and that'll just pay for itself. They didn't make it 1 to 10, 11 to 20, but then you can just substitute it with a coin flip. So the numbers are all weirdly, they're all 45, 55, so people can't just flip coins instead of rolling dice. Because other card games flip coins. We don't do that here. Alright. 7 mana, 5/5 flying dragon. Lightning Breath. When enters the battlefield, until your next turn, target creature and opponent goes gets -3/0. Another one gets -2. And another one gets -1. This card is not good. Boy, is this card not good. That effect is so medium minus. I don't want anything to do with it. It's an uncommon, too. I guess all the dragons have to be uncommons. 7 mana is so much. Oh yeah, if this card had flash, good lord. This would be a 9 out of 10 if it had flash. Not having flash, not so much. Yeah, if you could like ambush and then kill a bunch. Yeah, this card would be a bomb. Yeah, this would be a bomb. A bomb rare if it had flash, right? But it not having flash, I want nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's 7 mana. 7 mana is so much. I mean, this feels like it's worse than Mamori Jin, right? Which is a 4 blue 5/6 flying. I feel like it's worse than that. This is probably a 5 just because there's Dragon Matters cards in the set, right? There's Dragons Matters cards in the set, so it's maybe you need to play these types of things. And there are treasure cards, so maybe costing, like the venture cards can all become treasures. So maybe a costing 7 is like the new 6 because you're likely to have a treasure or 2 lying around. I'll put it as a 5 just because it's a giant creature and a giant flying creature, which is typically always good and sealed, despite whatever its cost is. Displacer Beast, 3 cost 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, venture into the dungeon. That's good. Displacement, 4 mana, return Displacer Beast to its owner's hand. This card seems pretty good. And it's not sorcery speed on displacement, so basically it can like flicker. It basically is like a blue tapper. In the sense that, well, it's an expensive tapper. But if your opponent has like a 6/6 on the ground or like an 8/8 on the ground, there's like a giant green creature without trample on the ground or a giant equipped creature on the ground, you can just chump it every turn and flicker your dude, return to your hand, and you're getting an advantage out of it. Eventually you'll be able to get like a goblin, or you think it's a 3/2 scry 1 in your experience? Well, it sets up the rest of the things though, right? It's also another mana sink, right? Because this is technically a 7 mana venture into the dungeon. A little bit better than that because you can block one of your opponent's things. Yeah, the infinite blocks late game feels like it's going to come up a lot. I feel like you're always going to play this card. I'll put it as a 6. I think you're always going to play it. It is understated. It is understated. Like, I think Displacer Beast is significantly worse than Soul Knife Spy. So it's definitely not an 8, and it's definitely not a 7. It's significantly worse than Soul Knife Spy. So it's either a 6 or a 5. But I think it's a card you're always going to play, and I don't think you're ever going to be unhappy to see it. Like, if your opponent has a 2-drop 3/1, and you play Displacer Beast and block it, I don't think you got the bad end of that exchange. I think venturing is worth more than a mana. So while I do think it's going to trade down mana-wise, I think the venturing is going to be worth it. And it has late game potential. That's a good top deck late game. Eccentric Apprentice. Flying, 3 cost 2/2. When enters the battlefield, venture to the dungeon. Now this card is way better than Displacer Beast. Just like the stat line alone. Like I think a 3-cost 2/2 flyer that ventures is better than the entirety of Displacer Beast's text. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've completed a dungeon, up to one target creature becomes a bird with base power and toughness 1/1 and flying. And so you can target your own creature to like get in there for a sneaky point, or you can shrink your opponent's really big creature into a smaller one. And this card is actually probably way better than it looks because it allows you to trade low-powered effects into actual terminates. Like for instance, if there was like a 1-cost deal 1 damage, this allows you to just turn those cards into literal kill target creatures. That seems pretty good to me. And if I understand the rules properly, your first main phase, you can play a damage spell on your opponent's 4/4, and beginning of combat turns around and you can turn their 4/4 into 1/1, and then it's a 1/1/2 damage on it and it dies. So they don't even get a blocker out of it. Or I don't think there is, but if there was a way to put -1/-1 counters on creatures, the beginning of combat thing would just straight up kill any creature that had a counter, a -1/-1 counter. I don't think there is a way to put a -1/-1 counter in the set. But if there was, that would also just kill it. I like this card. Is it better? It's not better than Soul Knife Spy, though. So I'll put it as a 7. I typically don't like Windrakes, but this is a pretty awesome Windrake. It draws quasi draws a card and has a pretty awesome complete dungeon effect. Oh, there's a -2/-2 enchantment. You're right. No, you're right. Feywild Trickster. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, create a 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature token with flying. These effects are always bananas. Wow. This is really good. Funnily enough, whoops, forgot to make this a 7. Oh no, whoops. All right. Yeah, this actually makes dragons. So if you have a Dragon's Matter card, this is considered a dragon, which I think is pretty funny. But yeah, this card is phenomenal. This is like a 9 out of 10. Yeah, this is like a 9 out of 10. Yeah, the one in Modern Horizons 1 counted mana 4 greater cards, right? And this card's way better than that, I think. Yeah, this is way better than the one in the previous set. This card is really good. Yeah, I feel like Feywild Trickster, if your opponent like untaps with it, they untap and they play Contact Other Plane, get a 1/1 flyer, draw some cards, and then the turn afterwards they untap, play Genuine Seeker, get another flyer, attack you for 1. Like the fact that blue has 2 common 4-drops that are just phenomenal that roll dice. Like, I don't imagine ever winning a game if my opponent untaps with this. And we haven't even gotten to the other dice rolling cards. There are creatures that have dice rolling effects in play when you attack with them, so you can like fight Feywild Trickster and then attack with a creature to make a flying token. Ugh. I'm not gonna enjoy losing to this one. Enchanted creature has flying, and wherever this combat deals combat damage to a player, venture in the dungeon. This card seems really good. It does not take very many hits for this to replace itself, right? I like this card a lot. Looks like he's more leaping than flying. Yeah, maybe. Maybe the little. If he didn't have the little magical fairy dust coming off from him, I would think that he was just leaping across a chasm. There are double strikers in the format. Yeah, there's a Blink Dog. There's actually 2 white ones. 2 white double strikers. There's Gloomstalker, which is really good with this card, by the way. There's Gloomstalker at common, and then they have Blink Dog at uncommon. I'm sure there's a red one too somewhere. Yeah, this card is the venture is quite strong. I think you're always gonna play it, assuming that you have creatures that cost less than 4 that are gonna be sticking around in play and just chilling. Feywild Trickster is a bit worse than Memory Mystic, but still great. Yeah, Memory Mystic was almost a 10 out of 10 in its format. Memory, yeah, it was like a mythic level uncommon. This was like a mythic level uncommon. The Fate Trickster is definitely worse than this card. Definitely worse than Memory Mystic. But I don't think that's fair because Memory Mystic is just a mythic that just was randomly an uncommon. Whenever guild, well, in that format, there was Jumpstart, so it was like there was basically flashback on a bunch of cards. So the Memory Mystic was just automatically just a 4-cost, make 5/1/1 flyers over the course of the game. That was Ravnica, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, it's Guild of Ravnica. I was right. Whenever Guild Thief deals combat damage to a player, put a counter on it. This card seems much worse than Soul Knife Spy. Yeah, exactly. I feel like Soul Knife Spy and Guild Thief had swapped their rarities. I don't like this card. I don't like it at all. There have typically been like 3-cost 2/2s or 3-cost 3/2s that are like unblockable with conditions in blue, and they've always been kind of medium. And I think this card's worse than all of those. I do not like this. I don't think you're going to play this most of the time. Here's Power of Persuasion. So this is the card I was talking about earlier. Choose target creature an opponent controls and roll a d20. 1-9, return it to its owner's hand. So 3 mana unsummon on 1 through 9. And then 10-19, its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library, which is much better than unsummon for sure. Although there was only an unsummon that can hit your opponent's creatures. But then the 20 is actually the worst of all effects, which is gain control of it until the end of your next turn. So you take their creature and it doesn't gain haste, so you can't attack with it, right? Even if it's untapped, you can't, unless it has haste, you can't attack with it. You do get to keep it until the end of your next turn, so you get to untap with it next turn, and you could attack with it. But then they get it back untapped, right? So in my mind, I feel like the 20 and the 1 are swapped. I feel like the output should have been at 1, gain control of it until the next turn. But I don't think you want to play this card. Like, for instance, your opponent has the 4/4 Death Touch token from Cradle of the Death God in the Tomb of Annihilation, and you cast this card on it. If you roll 1 through 19, you kill it. At 20, they just get to have it back. You attack them for 4, and they just get to keep their creature. They just get to have it. But you are correct. Yeah, at 20, they don't have to spend any mana. That's the big deal. If you return it to their hand or you put it on top of their bottom or bottom of their deck, they have to spend mana to get it back. Whereas 20, they don't have to spend mana or a card to get it back. They just have to spend 4 life points. Who cares? But you have to also understand that act of treason type effects or power persuasion type effects, in this case, are inordinately much more powerful in this format because of Tomb of Annihilation. Because of Sandfall Cell, which is each player loses 2 life unless they sacrifice an artifact, a creature, or a land. Because of this, because you have access to a sacrifice effect, if you can temporarily or permanently gain control of your opponent's cards, and you venture here, you can get rid of it for good. Gone for good, right? That's something to keep in mind, but I think this is a card you should almost never be playing. I think. Yeah, being a sorcery speed, too. I think this card is much worse than Disperse. Much worse than You Came to a River. Much worse than this card. Ray of Frost, Flash, enchant creature. Enters the battlefield. If another creature is red, tap it. As long as it's red, it loses all abilities. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its... What a weird card to exist in the same set as Charmed Sleep. I mean, I guess the joke here is it costs a mana less and has Flash, but it doesn't tap it, so it's kind of like, destroy a tapped creature, you lose 4 life or what have you, right? Because if they hit you with it, then They have to hit you with it before you can, like, Ray of Frost it unless it's red. I think you probably don't main deck this card. Yeah, it's like Bubble Snare. It's like the first half of Bubble Snare. Yeah. But the thing is, I never Bubble Snare for 1 mana. I just never did it. I know what you're talking about. I'll bring up Bubble Snare in case you don't know what it is. Bubble Snare was a turn a creature wasn't on tap and 3 mana to tap it. I never paid 1 for this card. I like almost never did. And having Flash does help. It may be worth to main deck it. I don't think you're gonna be unhappy if you main deck it. You never opened Rooster Drakes? That's fair. It's not embarrassing to play this card. It's not embarrassing. I wouldn't fault you if you did it. Choose target player. Return half the creatures they control to the owner's hand, rounded up. So if they have 1 creature, return 1. If they have 2 creatures, return 1. If they have 3 creatures, return 2. If they have 5 creatures, return 3. Of your choice. I don't like it. And you have to choose all from the same player, so it's not like... I think this is worse than 5 mana return 2 target creatures. Because I think a non-zero amount of the time, you would just target one of your creatures like that has an enter the battlefield ability than one of your opponents. Whereas you can't do that with this card. This has potential for massive blowouts on board stalls. Like if you both have 8 creatures and it's a board stall, you bounce their 4 best creatures and attack, they're probably dead. Right? So it has a pretty high ceiling. Or if they have 7 creatures, you return 4 of them. That's pretty awesome. But I don't know if you want to have a card in your deck that's good if your opponent has 7 creatures in play that they weren't attacking and killing you with. I get to choose on both one. Doesn't matter what player you choose. Yeah, if they chose the creatures, it would be like a 1 out of 10. But as it is, it has a high ceiling. I think it's a good sideboard card if it's a matchup where neither one of you has flyers, and just gonna be a board stall, and you're trying to like get a really big effect that wins the game. This will win you the game. It's kind of like Sleep. It's kind of like Sleep, although Sleep was way better. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Sleep. Yeah, it feels like a sideboard card. I don't think you want to main deck it. It has a high power level. I'll put it as a 4 just because it's not just like it's not unplayable. Draw a card for each different mana value among non-land cards in your graveyard. The fact that it says non-land is oof. This is probably a 6 mana draw 3 in a format that you can have 4 mana draw, potentially scry 2, draw 2, or draw 3. This seems bad. This is not Opportunity. Opportunity was 4 blue, draw 4 cards. And that card was always a sealed bomb. Yeah, Opportunity. Target player draws 4 cards. But Opportunity was often great in decks that had ramp. So you just like play 2 ramp spells, then Opportunity on turn 4, and then you kind of just emptied your hand the next turn. Which you can't do that with this card, because if you play 2 ramp... The ramp card in this set doesn't even put a card in your graveyard. Yeah. So this is not Opportunity. It doesn't even say target player, so you can't even kill your opponent with it. I don't like it. I'm not going to fault you for playing it, but I don't like it. It could be a 6 mana draw 6 pretty easily in the right deck. So it's a powerful card. But in the previous format, there was 3 blue. Draw a card for each card type in your graveyard. And weirdly enough, the card was unplayable. It was a 5 mana sorcery. That was in Modern Horizons 2. The card was just unplayable. And I think this card's worse than that because it doesn't even count lands. And also cost more. Alright, Trickster's Talisman. 1 cost equipment. 2 to equip. A equipped creature gets +1 as whenever this creature does combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice Trickster's Talisman. If you do, create a token that's a copy of this creature. This card seems quite good. It is a cheap... It's a lean-in scimitar that you can cash it in for like a 4/4. Yeah, I think this card's quite good. I think you're always going to play this, assuming you have creatures in your deck. It's especially good in a deck with cards like Soul Knight Spy, because it's likely your opponent has a 2x on trying to block your 3/2, right? You just like play Trickster's Talisman, equip attack. You don't even have to sacrifice. It's not mandatory. You do have to, but if I have it on one creature, I can't copy another creature. I have to copy the one that it's equipped to. So that one has to be attacking. But you do get you get an untapped copy of the creature, which is nice. Yeah, this is really good. This is really good. Wizard class. You have no maximum hand size. When this class becomes level 2, draw 2 cards. So it's divination. Nobody has anything to do on turn 1. So this is basically just divination. And then 5 mana, whenever you draw a card, put a counter on target creature. So if I draw 3 cards, do I put 3 counters? I don't know. I think you do. I think you do. You do? Yeah. This card's pretty good. This is like almost a bomb. This feels like a 9. Missile. This is a divination that pays rent. It also just randomly wins you the game. I like it when my divinations are also win conditions. Yeah, this is a 9. This card's really good. You could even bounce it, right? I mean, you could... In theory, you could disperse it if you wanted to draw 2 cards again. I don't know why you would, but the option's available to you. I'd rather just get to level 3 and just murder my opponent with putting a counter on my cards every turn. Yeah, this card's great. 1 blue 3/5 flash. It's a dragon, by the way. Dragon turtle. Drag below. When Dragon Turtle enters the battlefield, tap it and up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. What a weird card. So if my opponent just doesn't have a creature, and I play this on my opponent's end of turn 3, my creature doesn't untap. So it's like a 3/5 that comes into play tapped twice, right? 3 cost 3/5 that doesn't untap 1 time. That's the baseline. So it's overstated for its mana cost. You get the stat bot. You get the body of like a. You get the body of a 4.5 mana card, right? Yeah, it's like a 3/5 suspend 2. That's a good way to think about it. But it also suspends one of your opponent's creatures. This card seems pretty good. And your creature is going to untap before theirs. No, the opposing creature gets to untap. But if you do it on their turn, you're gonna get untapped before them always, right? I like how good it is against equipment, like equipped creatures. Like I think Dragon Turtle is way better than the Sign of Stygia. Alright, it's way better than this card. It's good. I mean, you're just always gonna play it. It's probably an 8. Grazilax, Ithilid Scholar. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. So the gustwing, super gustwing mechanic, sure. Whenever one or more creatures you control do combat damage to a player, draw a card. Wait, what? Why do we have a 3 mana 3/2 Soul Knight Spy? Why are these in the same set? It's so weird to me. Like the baseline is just a high quality common. But it's also just a conspiracy. It's also just a... It's just a super Soul Knight Spy. I don't understand it. This is not the first time that I've seen this either. Like, why are these 2 cards in the same set? Just like, that's really weird. Yeah, it's also just a Lord. Yeah. It affects on any of your creatures, so like you can play this and then attack with like your Whirlwind Flyer and draw a card. Yeah, this card's really good. It's 9. I doubt the first ability is going to come up that much. Maybe it will. Like, you can intentionally attack. Like, if you attack with your Sign of Stygia and your opponent blocks, you just return it to your hand, right? And then you get to do it on... You get to tap their creature in their turn. So, it's not like a non-zero... It's a non-zero on this, so... Yeah, Gust Cloak Savior. Yeah. That's what I was saying. That's what I said. It was a Gust Cloak mechanic. Although, I mean, Gust Cloak removed itself from combat. Yeah, Gust Cloak Savior. No. 5 cost, 3/3 when it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long. Yeah, this is like Sword of Temptation. This is like a 9. Just play it. You'll be happy about it. It's hard for you to get blown out in combat with this card, as long as you're attacking with the creature that you take. Because they'll get it back tapped. Yeah, card's great. And again, let's not forget that Tomb of Annihilation exists. Sandfall Cell exists. So, because of that, you can easily just take their creature and then like turn or 2 later, just get rid of it with Sandfall Cell. Or Oubliette if you wanted to sack a land and discard a creature or discard a card. I don't know if you want to do that, but alright, so this is a controversial card. This feels like, I think it's a mill 13, mill 10 to 14, right? Somebody who's smarter than me, probably some sort of Frank Carson, I'm sure, can figure out what the actual mana cost of cards you expect to exile with this. My instinct is that between 10 and 14 is the answer. 10 to 14 deck damage. That's a good effect to have if games go long. I don't think they do. I think it's an excellent sideboard card if your opponent is planning on... If your opponent is a venture deck that has Dungeon of the Mad Maging going on. Like if they're doing Runestone Caverns into Mad Wizard's Lair, like there's a lot of deck damage going on here. So I think it might be an excellent sideboard card against these type of decks. I don't think you main deck it though. So I'm not going to make it as a 2. Maybe I should. I can imagine decks this is actually good in. I can imagine them. I'll put it as a 3. Because I think it's actually a good sideboard card, but I don't think you should main deck it. In the previous set, there was a card called Fractured Sanity that was blue, mill 14, and that card was a bomb. But the previous format was really, 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 really slow. Modern Horizons 2 was really slow. So, I don't think this format's really slow. This format's actually quite fast. Like, the thing is, if you have an Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, like if you have 2 Aberrant Mind Sorcerers, 100% play Tasha's Hideous Laughter, because that just kills them. If you cast this twice, you're probably going to kill them. It's just the first one does actual nothing, but the second one kills them. So if you can return this to your hand or copy it, I don't know if there's a way to copy this, there probably is a way to copy it in the set, then you should be playing this card. Then you don't even have to attack to win. You just have to just sit there. Just sit there until you draw this and you'll win. Yeah. So actually, I'll put it as a 4 because it's either a 1 or a 9 depending on what the contents of your deck is. I'll put it as a 4. But be aware the card is in no way bad. It just may not fit your. It's the same way as the Secret Door. Like the card is either you want it or you don't. Right, it's either a 1 or it's either a 1 or a 6 on this Secret Door. It's the same thing here. Either it's good or it's unplayable. But fortunately, you have the ability in Seal to determine whether it's good or bad in your deck. The Black Staff of Waterdeep. You may choose not to untap it. I love it. I love that it's a word. It's another name that starts with the. Remember that 3 blue-black 5/5 that on your upkeep, they lose 1 life and you scry 1 for every zombie you have? But what's the name of that card? Scarab God? It was the Scarab God, alright? So this isn't Black Staff of Waterdeep, it's the Black Staff of Waterdeep. Animate Walking Statue. Another target non-token artifact creature you control becomes a 4/4 artifact creature for as long as it becomes tapped. Oh, by the way, treasure is a thing. Treasure is a thing in this set. So this just animates your treasure. When it dies, you can just do it again. Oh wait, it says non-token? Oh. Well, that's bad then. I don't want anything to do with this. It goes from unplayable to play. It goes from playable to like from like an 8 out of 10 to like why am I even looking at this card? What am I supposed to do with this? Animate my equipment? Why isn't this just a creature and I can put the equipment on the creature? No. I don't want anything to do with this. Target artifact or creature becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature. Boy, this was a card they printed before, wasn't it? Same mana cost, except it also did something else. No, it's not Mythos of Aluna. Was it Supplant Form? Let me check. I think there was also a 6 mana card that had this effect. No, it's much worse than Supplant Form. Good lord. Was it Shaylai? That sounds familiar. Shaylee? That sounds familiar. That's not it. It was Saheeli's Artistry. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. Create a token that's a copy of target creature. No. Saheeli's Artistry was a 10 out of 10. That was a bomb. That's not what this is. I remember there being a card in the past that lets you clone your opponent's creatures or change your creatures into theirs, and it was pretty medium minus. Like, yes, you can turn your treasure into like a 4/4. But why don't you just play a 6 mana 4/4 instead? Like, there's actually you can just play a Rhyme Shield Farce Giant instead of this card, right? I don't know. I don't think I'd actually ever want to play this. Was it Lithjara? No. Turn their best thing into a treasure? Yes. That might be the best case scenario. It's 6 mana murderer creature. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's a 6 mana version of Minimus Containment. You're right. I mean, I guess as 6 mana Terminate, it's got a base floor of 3. You should not be playing this card, but I don't even know, like, I don't even understand what it is that, like, what is the biggest upside of this card? I don't even get it. Like, what am I... They play a bomb, you turn your creature into their bomb, and then you kill their creature? That's a lot of mana. It's a lot of... I'm not saying it. You turn their bomb into a token, a treasure token, I guess. Maybe you ambush something? Yeah. Target artifact or creature becomes a copy of another target. No, I think you can choose you can turn their creature into an artifact treasure. I get what you're saying. I don't think you get to turn a creature into a creature and artifact into an artifact. I think you can choose one or the other. Exile target instant or sorcery from a graveyard. Roll a d20. Activate only as a sorcery. 1 to 9. Copy that card. Okay. 10 to 19, copy that card. You may cast the copy by paying 1. Okay. I guess that's a high cost to pay. Boy, that doesn't make any sense to me. Copy each card exile with Wizard Spellbook. You may cast any number of these copies without paying their mana cost. The 10 to 19 is nonsense. Like, that basically only matters the turn you play it. Right? The turn you play it, you're tapped out, and in theory, if you tap it, there's a 50% chance that you... Because both 1 to 9 and 20 don't cost mana, right? So it's an actual coin flip whether you can cast the card on turn 7 when you play this. Every other turn, it just does it. Oh, wait, I got what you're saying. 1 to 9 cost mana. Oh, gotcha. I understand now. I get the joke. I got the joke. I thought it was Mind's Desire type. I thought it was just like play without the mana cost, period. I thought it was either 0 mana cost or 1. Okay, it's actual pay the mana cost. Okay. Makes more sense now. Makes more sense. This card's pretty good, right? I agree, it still kind of only matters the turn you play it. Yeah, we're in agreement. We're in agreement. Oh, yes, you can Clever Conjurer it. That is correct. It doesn't say you may pay mana of any color though, so if you're like a blue-white deck and your opponent's a black-red deck, their instants and sorceries are gonna be hard to cast unless you get treasures, right? I mean, you're gonna be activating this every turn regardless. I feel like this is either like a 1 or a 7. Yeah, 55% chance for your color to not matter. I gotcha. It's like a 1 or a 7, right? Well, also 7 mana, but like, I'm talking about out of 10. Yeah, you can hit your opponent's graveyard. If you roll 20 in the first activation, it does nothing. No, the first thing is you exile target instant or sorcery card, and then you roll the d20. So if you roll 20 in your first time, you do just get to play it. This card seems really good. It's probably a... Maybe it's a 1 or a 9. I can't imagine winning if my opponent has this card in play. Unless I'm already way ahead on board. Yeah, it's going to be so hard to win. I'll put it as a 7. It requires some setup. It's not like it doesn't win the game on its own immediately. It requires like 3 extra turns after you play it before it really starts paying off, I think. And there's a chance that it doesn't do anything. So maybe it's a 6. I'll put it as a 6. Radiant Skullwielder is way better than this card. You're talking about Radiant... This thing? It's way better. Radiant Skullwielder is way better than this Wizard Spellbook. But Skullwielder is a 9 out of 10, so... Juan T. Malison. Can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. 2 cost, 2/1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player eventually in the dungeon. Yeah, this card's bananas. This feels like a 9. This feels like the Luminarch, whatever it is. Luminarch Aspirant. Kind of reminds me of this guy. Just like a 2-cost creature that unless you kill on the spot, you just lose. Yeah, it doesn't take much for this guy to just get to solo you, right? Because he can go into the dungeon and either a Tomb of Annihilation or a Lost Mine are going to kill you pretty fast. If this fellow goes here, you're going to be facing down a 4/4 real fast. This fellow goes here, he turns into a 3/2, and he gets a 1/1, and then draws a card. That's pretty awesome for a 2-drop. Demi-Lich. The spell costs blue less to cast for each instant or sorcery you've cast this turn. Whenever it attacks, it's logged to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy. You may cast Demi-Lich from your graveyard by exiling 4 instant or sorcery cards. I think if you're not playing blue-red, this seems hard to play. But it's 4 blues a lot. No, this is better than... It's not constructed only. I think it's easy. It's a 6-drop, basically. It's a 6-drop 4/3. You're going to play an instant or sorcery that costs 3. And then you're going to play this afterwards for 3 blue. And I say blue-red because red has the improvised weaponry, which is pretty awesome with this. Because it gives you the treasure token, which gives you the blue mana you need to actually cast it. Black also has the 4 mana Grim Bounty, right? Which is also a combo with it, because it gives you the treasure to cast it. Yeah, I think you should probably always be playing it. If you have 9 islands, in your deck, you should be playing this, and it's probably going to be quite good for you. It's just going to cost 6 or 7 mana. 6 or 7 mana that, if it attacks, you win, right? And you can probably rebuy it on 8 or 9 mana. Yeah, this is probably a 9. This card's pretty good. It's probably... I guess it's worse than... I guess it's worse than this fellow. I'll put it as an 8, because it's worse than this fellow. It's good, though. This is way better than it looks. There's also, like, a green... There's, you have it on a... There's this card, which searches library for 2 basic land cards. So you can go search for 2 islands, right, and then go cast your Demi-Lich pretty easily. So there's lots of cards that support it. I think there's a card in every color that supports it. Maybe white doesn't have one, but blue, red, and green Or black, red, and green all have ones. Imareth, Desert Doom. Flying has Ward 4 as long as it's untapped. Just combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then if you have fewer than 3 cards in your hand, draw cards equal the difference. Okay, so if I have 0 cards in my hand and I attack and it hits them, I could draw up to 3 cards. If I have 2 cards in hand and I attack my opponent, I draw up to 3 cards. If I have 6 cards in my hand and I attack my opponent, I draw up to 7 cards. Alright, so you always draw 1 card, but you might draw up to 3. Draw 1 to 3 cards, basically. It's pretty good. It's on the level of Dragonlord. It's basically, I mean, oops, Luminarch Aspirant's here still. It's basically on the level of Dragonlord Ojutai, right? It's just like they're the same card, essentially. This thing. It's just on the same level as this card. They're like almost the same card. I'm glad that it has Ward 4 instead of Hexproof as long as it's untapped. I think just having like high ward counts is much better to me than having actual Hexproof. Despite it being pretty similar to Hexproof in most regards. No, you can't just draw a card and if it didn't play it, you don't have priority in the middle of resolution of an ability. Yeah. Dragonlord Ojutai, yeah, they're not separate triggers. Draw 2 cards and put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. Okay. Create a blue dog illusion creature token with this creature's power total is equal to twice the number of cards in your hand. So make a 4/4. Turns into a 6/6 the next turn. Maybe it goes up to like an 8/8 or a 10/10 the next turn. Exchange your hand in the library, then shuffle. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. So it makes like the dog into like a 40/40. This has an enormous amount of loyalty that you can't ignore because it makes like 10/10s. It minuses to make a 10/10, and then it pluses to do better than draw a card. And this card's really good. I mean, it's a 10, right? So far, it looks like the best card in the set. For sealed, anyway. I mean, this fellow will single-handedly win you the game. I guess not single-handedly. This fellow and his dog. Although apparently he has many dogs. I'm surprised that the dog illusion is not legendary, but exactly, yeah, Mick Winsaw's right. I expected it's going to be legendary, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised it's not legendary, but apparently he's lived a long life and had many dogs, so he just keeps on remembering all the dogs he's had. It's a planeswalker. They've lived like hundreds, if not thousands of years. They probably just don't have planeswalking dogs yet. So this fellow probably likes dogs and has had many of them. He has a portfolio of dogs to choose from to create an illusion of. You can make as many as he needs. Alright, well. Blue seems pretty powerful in this set. It has so far the best card in the set, which is this Mordenkainen. That can just solo carry the game. It has a ton of rares that this Dragon Turtle's probably a 7. Now that I think about it. I'm revising my Dragon Turtle. At the end of the day, it's like a slightly undercosted Dowser and Gloom, right? It's a 3-cost 3/5 with suspend 2. That's what it is. But sometimes suspend 2 is your opponent's creature, which is maybe not the greatest. This actually might be towards a 6, now that I think about it some more. Yeah, the thing is, the blue has some pretty bad uncommons. Like Split the Party, and then Ray of Frost, and Power Persuasion, and Guild Thief, and Blue Dragon. But they also have Wizard class, which like hard carries the game. And Mordenkainen, which is hard carrying the game. They have a lot of single card win conditions. Like Demi-Lich can also hard carry the game. The Yuan team Malison can hard solo carry the game. So there's a lot of one card win conditions in blue. Yeah, they have high highs and very low lows. I would expect Charm Sleep is pretty good. And Soul Nice Spy is just kind of bananas. So like If your deck, if the pool that you've opened is like medium to medium, if medium or worse, it's very likely you're playing blue to have a shot to win, because blue has a lot of cards that can snowball the game wildly out of control. Like if your opponent misses a single beat, or they stumble just a little bit, Soul Knight Spy just puts them away. Right? If you can connect with this one time, I find it hard to believe that you'll lose a game where you connect with Soul Knight Spy. Or if your opponent's like gets or it's like mana screwed for a turn, you have a secret door, and you just start venturing at their secret door. That just puts them away, right? Or if you have like a contact at the other plane with a pixie guide, that just like ends the game so fast if they don't run you over, you're just gonna run them over because it's so easy for you to have such a consistent deck with all these effects. So far, blue seems better than white, alright? Despite, I think, white having maybe some better commons. It kind of just depends how good Planar Ally is. Because if Planar Ally isn't as good as I think it is, then maybe white's not very good. But for instance, I think this 3/2 Soul Knife Spy, I think this card is better than Priest of Ancient Lore by a pretty big amount. Alright, let's go on to black.